Commander Elias Ward stood near the large window of the starship Aurora's Reach. The ship floated near the glowing blue nebula, where the first great meeting between humans and the Zellery Dominion would take place. Elias watched the colors swirl outside, trying to calm his mind. It was supposed to be a peaceful diplomatic mission, but he felt there was something heavier in the air. Something waiting behind the bright beauty of space. He didn't know what it was yet, but his instincts told him this meeting would not be simple. The door behind him opened softly. Ambassador Rana entered with her usual strict expression. She carried a small digital file in her hand and stopped when she saw Elias still staring out the window. "You look tense," she said. "I'm just thinking," Elias answered. "This is the first time humanity will meet the ruling houses of the Zellery. Everything we do here will affect our future for decades." Rana nodded. "That's exactly why we chose you. Calm mind. Steady behavior. No fear under pressure." Elias never liked being praised. He felt it put weight on his shoulders, and he already had enough weight. Still, he understood his role. He was not a politician, but he had been trained in diplomacy and field strategy. The combination made him useful in unpredictable environments. "We land in 1 hour," Rana continued. "Once we reach the crystalline hall, stay close and observe. The princess will be present." "Princess Lyra?" Elias asked, turning from the window. "Yes. She is the heir to the Dominion throne. Young, but respected. And different. 4-3 resection. 4-3 resection. 4-3 resection. Described to liver. Different how?" Rana hesitated. "Some say she admires humans more than she admits. You'll see." Elias wasn't sure what that meant, but there was no time to ask more. The ship moved smoothly through the nebula, heading toward the shining structure floating in space. The Zellery station looked like a giant flower of crystal, each petal glowing faint blue and white, held together by energy fields instead of metal. It was elegant in a way human technology rarely was. Elias felt a strange mix of awe and caution as they approached. The docking completed without issue. When the doors opened, a group of Zellery guards stood in formation. Their bodies were tall and thin, covered in a metallic sheen that looked almost natural. Their eyes glowed softly like crystals catching light. At the center of the group stood Princess Lyra. Elias recognized her immediately from the files, but no hologram or image had prepared him. Her presence was calm yet strong. Her hair shimmered like strands of liquid silver, and her skin held a faint glow. She looked at the humans with curiosity, not fear. "Welcome to the Dominion Station," she said, her voice soft but clear. "We hope this meeting strengthens the bond between our worlds." Ambassador Rana bowed slightly. "Thank you, Princess Lyra. Humanity is honored to be invited." Elias followed protocol and gave a respectful nod. Lyra's eyes settled on him for a moment longer than he expected. There was something thoughtful in her gaze, as if she already knew something about him. The group moved forward through the crystalline hall. The walls shifted with patterns of light, almost like they were alive. Elias studied the environment carefully. Everything looked peaceful, but he had learned long ago not to trust appearances. The air felt tense, and he noticed that some Zellery nobles in the hall whispered among themselves while looking at the princess. Their expressions were stiff, maybe even unfriendly. As the meeting began, delegates from both sides discussed trade routes, cultural exchange, and peaceful cooperation. Elias listened quietly, occasionally whispering strategic suggestions to Rana. Everything was going smoothly, until the slight vibration ran through the floor. It was light at first, almost unnoticeable. But Elias felt it. Then a second vibration came stronger. Lyra paused mid-sentence. Her eyes narrowed. The nobles looked confused. One guard checked his wrist device and stiffened. "Princess," the guard said urgently, "energy levels in the lower chamber are unstable. Something is interfering with the core." Lyra stood immediately. "Show me." Elias reacted before anyone else. "Is this a natural issue or sabotage?" The guard hesitated too long. Elias understood what that meant. He stepped forward. "Ambassador Rana, Stay here. Protect the delegation. Rana nodded, trusting him without question. Lyra turned to Elias. Human, why do you wish to come with me? This is a Dominion matter. Because I sense danger, Elias said simply. And I don't leave people to face danger alone. Lyra stared at him for a moment, then nodded once. Very well. Follow me. They ran through the crystal halls to the lower chamber. As they approached, the glowing walls flickered like unstable flames. Elias felt an intense heat in the air, and the energy field near the core pulsed wildly. A device clearly not Dominion technology had been attached to the core's control lines. Sabotage, Lyra whispered. Someone is trying to destabilize the entire station. Elias stepped closer, analyzing the device. The core emitted waves of pressure. Building toward a dangerous level, the device was set to overload it, causing an implosion that could destroy the hall and possibly the entire station. We have minutes, Elias said. Lyra's voice was tight. Can you disarm it? Not safely, Elias said. But I can shield you. He reached into his belt and activated his kinetic barrier generator, a human defensive tool that compressed energy into a protective dome. He threw himself between Lyra and the core. The explosion hit. Light burst outward like a wave of fire. The kinetic shield held, but the blast was strong enough to throw Elias back. He hit the floor hard, vision shaking. He heard alarms, shouts, rushing guards. When he forced himself to stand, he saw that the core chamber was damaged but stable. The device had been destroyed before it could trigger a full collapse. Princess Lyra stood only a few feet away, staring at Elias as if seeing something rare. You protected me, she said softly. It was the logical choice, he answered, trying to catch his breath. No, it was more than logic. She stepped closer. Many in this station would not risk themselves so quickly. You did not hesitate. Elias shrugged lightly. That's what humans do. We act when people are in danger. Lyra looked at him with a thoughtful expression, almost wondering. I have heard many things about humanity. Some noble, some foolish. But I did not expect this. Before Elias could respond, two nobles entered the chamber hurriedly. Their expressions were not of concern but annoyance. Lyra noticed this too. Their reaction was too controlled, too calm for what had just happened. Princess, one said, we must return to the hall. The meeting cannot continue with this chaos. Chaos you might have caused, Lyra replied sharply. Both nobles stiffened but said nothing. Lyra turned to Elias again. I thank you, Commander. I only did what anyone should do. No, she said quietly. Not anyone. There was a moment of silence. Something about the way she looked at him felt different. Like she was seeing not only what he had done but what it meant. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Human. May I ask you something unusual? Elias blinked. Unusual how? She hesitated. Zelari royalty rarely hesitated. Then, she asked, her tone serious yet gentle, if I asked whether you would want me, as your wife, what would you say? Elias froze, confused, shocked, maybe even speechless. The question made no sense in the moment. They had known each other for less than a day. He had saved her life, yes. But marriage? He answered carefully. Princess, I don't understand. She looked straight into his eyes. In our culture, such a question is asked only to someone we believe is honorable enough to stand with us in times of danger. It is not a casual question. And I do not ask it lightly. Elias felt his heart pound. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to respond to royalty, especially royalty from another species. Before he could find words, the chamber doors opened again. Guards entered, announcing new damage reports and the identity of the suspected faction behind the attack. Lyra stepped back, but her eyes locked onto Elias, with meaning that stayed heavy in the air. We will speak again, she whispered. I meant my question. Elias wanted to respond, but he could only watch as she walked toward her guards, glowing softly in the flickering light. The danger was not over, and neither was whatever had just begun between them. Commander Elias Ward walked beside Ambassador Rana as they returned to the main hall of the Zalari station. The air was heavy with tension after the sabotage in the core chamber. Delegates whispered in the glowing corridors, and the crystalline walls flickered with unstable energy. Even though the danger had passed for the moment, Elias could feel that something larger was moving in the shadows of this alien kingdom. Rana spoke quietly as they walked. "What exactly happened down there?" Elias answered honestly. A foreign device was attached to the core. It was designed to overload the station. "And Princess Lyra? She is unharmed?" "Yes. The shield protected her." Rana let out a slow breath. "Good. Humanity cannot afford a diplomatic disaster on its first major interstellar meeting." Elias didn't reply. His mind was not on politics. His mind was on the princess's strange question. Her voice echoed in his thoughts again and again. "If I asked whether you would want me as your wife, what would you say?" He still couldn't understand it. They had met only hours ago. He had saved her life because that was what any decent person would do. Marriage? That wasn't something a human asked so suddenly, and certainly not something a royal heir should ask a foreign visitor. But something about the way she asked, calm, sincere, almost emotional, made Elias feel there was more behind it than simple tradition or politics. When they entered the hall, a group of Zalari nobles stood waiting. Their expressions were tense, but Elias noticed something else beneath the surface: fear. Not fear of humans, but fear of what the princess might do next. Princess Lyra arrived shortly after, surrounded by her guards. She walked with grace, but there was steel in her steps. Her gaze moved straight to Elias for a brief moment, and he saw a quiet determination in her eyes. She took her place at the front of the hall and raised her voice so all could hear. "A sabotage was attempted. Someone inside this station acted against the Dominion and against peace with humanity." The nobles whispered again. Lyra continued. "The device was not of human design, which means someone tried to frame humanity or hoped the humans would be blamed when the station collapsed." One noble stepped forward, a tall man with a long silver crest down his head. "It is possible, Princess, that humans did bring such a device. They are new to our systems. Their technology is primitive. They have reasons to fear our dominance. Perhaps they wished to destabilize." "Enough," Lyra said sharply. Silence cut across the hall. Commander Elias Ward risked his life to save mine. If not for him, this hall would now be ash and vacuum. The noble's face tightened with irritation. Rana stepped forward in defense. "Humanity came here with peace. We do not engage in treachery." The noble turned to her. "You speak boldly for someone whose species is barely a century into interstellar travel." "Duel." Elias stepped forward before the argument escalated. "I don't care about insults," he said steadily. "I care about whoever tried to kill your princess." Lyra's gaze softened at his words. The noble's eyes narrowed. "Humans speak boldly, but boldness does not give them the right to act as protectors of our royalty." Elias didn't look away. "I wasn't acting as a protector. I was acting as a person who refuses to stand by while others die." The noble opened his mouth to speak, but Lyra interrupted again. "We will investigate," she said. "But until then, all houses must remain cooperative. Anyone who tries to disrupt the peace will answer to the royal family." She stepped down from the platform and walked toward Elias. She spoke softly so the others couldn't hear. "Please come with me. There is much I must explain." Elias hesitated, but then followed her out of the hall, leaving the murmurs of nobles behind. They walked through a quieter corridor made of transparent crystal. Space stretched around them on all sides, filled with distant stars. Lyra stopped at a balcony-like platform and leaned against the energy railing. "My people are in trouble," Lyra said softly. "And I fear the sabotage was only the beginning." "Why would someone target you?" Elias asked, her eyes lowered. "Because the royal throne is weak. My father is aging, and many nobles believe I am unready to lead. Some want to take power for themselves. Some want a war with humans. Others believe our traditions are dying." Elias listened quietly. He knew political tension when he saw it. But this felt different. It felt personal, Lyra continued. The question I asked you earlier. It was not meant to confuse you. It was a question of trust. Elias felt his heartbeat tighten. But why ask me something so serious after only knowing me for a short time? She turned to him with a gentle, honest expression. Because when the core was exploding, you did not know who I was. You did not know what saving me would mean. You simply acted. That kind of courage is rare among the Zalari nobles. They think first about themselves. Always. Elias shook his head slowly. You're giving me too much credit. I didn't do anything extraordinary. You did, she said. And I admired it. He didn't know how to respond. The princess seemed to read his confusion. She stepped closer. Elias, for a Zalari princess, there are only two reasons to propose such a question. One reason is political alliance. The other reason is personal. He swallowed, unsure what she meant. Lyra looked away for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Some nobles believe I should choose a partner soon. Someone who will stand by me when the throne becomes mine. But I do not trust them. Many would only use me to gain power. And you think a human wouldn't? Elias asked. I think a human does not care about our throne, she answered simply. I think you would stand beside me because it is right, not because of power. Elias opened his mouth to argue, but the sound of footsteps echoed behind them. A Zalari guard hurried toward them. Princess, we discovered something. Another device hidden near the energy grid. It was set to activate soon. Lyra's face hardened. Show us. Show us. Elias followed them to a maintenance chamber. The second device was smaller but just as dangerous. It was attached to a web of cables connected to the station's energy shield. If activated, it would disable the shield and leave the entire station exposed to space. Lyra pressed her hand against the crystal wall, activating a hologram. It showed the device's activation sequence. This was meant to kill us slowly, she said. Without shields, the station would have suffered structural damage from the nebula radiation. Elias inspected the device carefully. It looks similar to the first one. Same tech, same material, Lyra nodded. This is not one person. It is a faction. Elias took a deep breath. Then you have a bigger problem than I thought. The guard looked at Lyra nervously. Princess, we believe the nobles from House Varen are involved. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Varen has challenged my family before. Elias sensed trouble. What happens now? Lyra turned to him. Now, we prepare. They will not stop. And if they believe humans stand with me, they might act even faster. Elias frowned. Why would they think humans stand with you? Lyra looked directly into his eyes. Because of the question I asked you. Elias felt a wave of surprise. But I never answered. Sometimes, she whispered. The silence is its own answer. He didn't know what to say to that. Before he could speak, the station trembled slightly. Not a full explosion, just a warning shock. But it was enough. Lyra straightened her posture. They are testing something, preparing something. She took a slow breath and placed a hand on Elias's arm. I am sorry to involve you in this, but after what happened, I trust very few people. You saved my life. That alone makes you important to me. Alongside. Elias shook his head. I'm not a royal. I'm not part of your politics. You are part of this now, she said gently. Not because of politics, but because fate placed you beside me when danger came. He looked at her, unsure how to respond. Lyra stepped back slightly, her silver hair glowing under the crystal lights. Elias Ward, my earlier question still stands. I asked it not as a command, but as an invitation to stand with me. Even as the storm grows. He was silent. Lyra smiled faintly, though there was sadness in her eyes. When the time comes, you will understand why I asked. And I hope you will have an answer. Before he could respond, the alarm sounded again, this time louder. Something new had begun, and the danger was rising fast. The alarm echoed through the crystalline corridors like a deep pulse of danger. Red light rippled across the walls, warning every living being on the station that something serious had begun. Commander Elias Ward immediately shifted into alert mode, his senses sharp and focused. Princess Lyra stood beside him, her usually calm silver eyes now tense with worry. A Zilari guard rushed into the chamber. "Princess, a fleet has appeared at the edge of the nebula. The signatures match House Varen." Lyra's expression hardened. "They dare to bring ships here?" The guard nodded. "They are broadcasting false emergency signals. They claim the humans attempted an attack on the station. And Varen is responding to protect the royal family." Rage flickered in Elias's chest. "They're framing us." "It seems so," Lyra said quietly. "And if they convince enough houses, they may gain control of the Dominion before the truth spreads." Elias understood the situation quickly. Varen didn't need a real reason. They just needed a story strong enough to gather support. A royal station under attack, a princess in danger, suspicious human technology involved. Everything pointed toward a planned political takeover. "We need evidence," Elias said. "If we can prove they planted the devices, we can expose them." Lyra nodded. "Yes. But Varen will not wait. Their fleet will move soon." The station trembled again, this time from a shockwave outside. Elias looked out the transparent wall and saw bright flashes of energy lighting up the nebula. "They're firing warning shots," he said, trying to scare the station. Lyra took a steady breath. "We will not run. But we cannot fight alone." Lyra took a steady breath. Elias knew what she meant. Humanity had few ships in this region. And even if they sent a message to nearby human colonies, help would take hours to arrive. The Zilari station had defenses, but not enough to handle a full noble fleet alone. "We need a plan," Elias said. "Fast." Lyra motioned for him to follow. "Come. There is something you must see." Crazy. She led him deep into the inner halls of the station. After several turns, they entered a quiet chamber, filled with glowing crystal pillars. In the center was a massive hologram of the surrounding nebula and all nearby ships. "This is our strategic observatory," Lyra said. "We can monitor all energy flows in the region." Elias studied the hologram carefully. The Varen ships were forming a semicircle around the station, tightening their hold. Their formation was aggressive, not defensive, and they were preparing something large. "There," Elias pointed. "They're building energy at their central ship." Lyra nodded grimly. "A destabilizer beam. If they fire it, our shields will collapse." Elias frowned. "I have an idea. But it's risky." Lyra turned to him. "Every good plan is. We need to reroute part of your station's solar energy grid," Elias said, zooming the hologram. "If we overload the grid for a few seconds, it will release a pulse strong enough to reveal hidden energy signatures." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "So we could find out where the remaining sabotage devices are. And prove Varen's involvement," Elias said. "Yes." Lyra considered it. "But the pulse may also disable parts of the station." "I know. But right now, the choice is this. Small damage now, or total destruction later." Lyra nodded slowly. "Very well. Let us do it." She called her engineers and explained Elias's plan. The Zilari tech experts were confused at first. They were not used to human-style improvisation, but after a few moments, they nodded in understanding. Elias moved between the consoles with calm precision, adjusting energy routes and cross-checking balance levels. Lyra watched him with quiet admiration. "You act like you've done this before," she said softly. Elias didn't look up. "I've handled emergency grid reroutes on human ships, but never on a massive alien station. And yet," she said gently, "you work as if you were born here." He didn't respond. His focus was sharp. The energy grid began to hum, as power shifted into new channels. Lights flickered. Walls brightened. And the entire chamber vibrated with rising force. "Pulse ready," one engineer said. Lyra stepped forward. "Activate." The pulse burst outward through the nebula like a silent wave of white light. Elias watched the hologram carefully as the pulse swept through the region. Suddenly, thousands of small red dots appeared around the hologram signal markers. Lyra gasped. These are hidden Varen beacons. Not only beacons, Elias said. Sabotage devices. Dozens of them. The guards stared in shock. The evidence was undeniable now. Varen had been planning this takeover for a long time. Lyra straightened. Send this data to all houses. They must see the truth. But just as the engineers moved to transmit the information, the station shook again, a massive blast this time. Elias nearly lost his balance. What was that? He asked. A guard checked the feed. Varen's main ship has fired the destabilizer beam. Our shields are weakening. Elias looked at Lyra. The moment we reveal the truth, they will try to destroy the station before the message spreads. Lyra's jaw tightened. Then we must move faster. She turned to her head guard. Assemble a loyal strike team. We will board the Varen flagship. Elias blinked. Board it? Lyra, that ship is heavily armed. She looked at him, her eyes fierce. Then I need someone who doesn't fear danger to come with me. Elias felt a quiet heat in his chest. He didn't want to leave her to face the enemy alone. I'm coming. Forda. Lyra nodded once. I knew you would. Minutes later, Elias and Lyra stood in a small tactical shuttle with a team of Zalari guards. The shuttle launched toward the Varen flagship through drifting clouds of glowing nebula dust. Inside the shuttle, Lyra stood close to Elias. She spoke quietly. This may be dangerous. I did not wish for you to be part of our conflict. Elias met her gaze. I'm here because I choose to be. Her expression softened at his words. Something gentle and strong passed between them, silent but powerful. When they reached the enemy flagship, the shuttle's cloaking field activated. They slipped through the battle formation, reaching an access port on the ship's underside. The hatch opened, and Elias led the guards into the dim metallic corridors. Unlike the royal station, the Varen ship was cold and harsh, built for war. Stay alert, Elias whispered. They'll know we're here soon. They moved quietly through the halls, avoiding patrols. Lyra kept close behind Elias, her crystal energy glowing softly around her hands. They reached the core chamber of the flagship, the brain of the destabilizer beam. A large crystalline engine pulsed with unstable light. There it is, Lyra whispered. The device controlling the beam, but before they could move, a tall Zalari figure stepped out of the shadows. It was Lord Varen himself. His voice echoed coldly. Princess Lyra, I wondered how long before you made a foolish decision. Lyra's guards lifted their weapons, but Varen raised a hand, and a wave of energy pushed them back. You bring a human into our affairs, Varen said with disgust. How far the royal line has fallen. Elias stepped forward. I'm not here to argue with you. I'm here to stop you. Varen's eyes narrowed. Humans. Always placing themselves where they do not belong. Elias raised his weapon. We belong wherever innocent lives are threatened. Varen smiled cruelly. Brave words. But bravery does not change fate. He raised his hand, and a blast of red energy shot toward Elias. Lyra moved faster. Her crystal shield burst outward, blocking the attack and filling the room with white-blue light. She stood beside Elias with fierce determination. You will not harm him, she said to Varen. The room trembled as the two sides clashed, Lyra and Elias working together, her energy and his tactical precision forming a perfect balance. Elias found a gap in the engine's structure and aimed his weapon carefully. Lyra, now, he shouted. She unleashed a wave of crystal energy, destabilizing the beam's core. Elias fired a targeted shot at the same moment. The engine cracked with a blinding flash. Varen screamed in rage as the system collapsed. Guards flooded the chamber, but Lyra's loyal team fought them off. With one final surge, the beam shut down. Outside, the Varen fleet's formation broke as the truth spread through the Dominion broadcast by Lyra's engineers before Varen could stop it. The nobles supporting Varen began to retreat. Realizing they had lost, the flagship trembled violently. Elias grabbed Lyra's arm. We need to get out. They ran through the corridors, racing toward the shuttle as the enemy ship began to lose power. The shuttle doors opened just in time, and the team launched away from the collapsing vessel. As they returned to the royal station, Elias sat down, exhausted but relieved. Lyra sat beside him, breathing hard but steady. She turned to him slowly. "Elias Ward, today you did more than save my life. You helped save my future." He looked at her quietly. "I only did what was right." Lyra smiled softly. "Yes. That is why I still ask the same question." Elias felt his heart tighten. She whispered, "Will you stand beside me? Not because you must, but because you choose to." Before he could answer, the station came into view, safe, glowing, and alive. The final decision would come soon, and the galaxy was already watching. The next morning arrived slowly, almost carefully, as if the universe wanted to prepare both Marcus and Princess Lyrian for what was coming. The sun on Rillian Prime rose in two soft colors, pale gold and gentle blue, creating a sky that looked painted by a careful hand. Marcus stood near the balcony of the guest chamber where he had spent the night. He had slept little, not because he was scared, but because he could not stop thinking about the future. Everything that had happened in the last few days felt unreal. A princess had asked him to be her husband. An entire kingdom believed he was some symbol of courage. And today he was supposed to stand before thousands of aliens to make a decision that could change not only his life but possibly humanity's place in the galaxy. He stepped outside into the fresh air, and the soft wind made him feel calm. He kept telling himself that he needed a clear mind. This was not something he could choose carelessly. Not because he didn't want to be with Lyrian, he did, but because the world she belonged to was delicate, full of politics and expectations. And she was not just a woman, she was a princess with responsibilities heavier than anyone he had ever known. He was still thinking when he heard light footsteps behind him. When he turned, he saw Lyrian walking toward him, wearing a soft white ceremonial gown that shimmered slightly whenever the light touched it. Her expression was calm, but he could see a small nervousness in her eyes, like someone who was strong but had something to lose. She greeted him warmly, and he returned the gesture. For a moment they didn't speak. They just looked at the sky together, enjoying the peace before the coming storm of attention. Eventually Lyrian broke the silence. She told him the council meeting would begin in an hour. She explained that once the ceremony started, every royal advisor, every noble family, and thousands of citizens in the capital would be watching. Marcus nodded, trying to absorb the scale of everything. She gently asked if he had made a decision. He admitted he had thought about it all night but still felt unsure if he was ready to take such a big step. She didn't look disappointed. Instead, she gave him a small, understanding smile and said she didn't want him to choose out of pressure. She wanted him to choose only if his decision came from honesty and respect. Marcus appreciated her sincerity more than she realized. Soon after, royal attendants arrived to escort them to the Great Hall. The walk through the palace felt different today. Everyone bowed or placed their hands on their chests in a gesture of respect. Many looked at Marcus as if he carried some type of heroic energy. The attention made him uncomfortable, but he also felt a strange responsibility blooming inside him. When they reached the grand hall, he understood why Lyrian had warned him. The room was enormous, built from marble-like stone with tall crystal pillars that reflected the light in soft colors. Thousands of people filled the balconies above, and in the center stood the council, a large circle of respected figures who governed the kingdom alongside the royal family. The hall was silent when Marcus and Lyrian entered, and every eye focused on them. Lyrian stepped forward first and addressed the council with grace. She explained clearly what had happened during their old ritual, how she had asked Marcus the question, and how she believed her heart had spoken honestly. She told them she did not make her choice out of duty, fear, or political gain. She chose because she believed in him, because his courage had impressed her, because his honesty made him trustworthy, and because he had shown strength without cruelty, confidence without pride, and kindness without weakness. The council listened carefully. Some members whispered among themselves, but no one interrupted. After Lyrian finished, it was Marcus's turn. For a moment he felt his pulse quicken. Speaking before so many people was nothing like fighting, but he gathered his confidence and stepped forward. He explained how he had arrived in their world by chance, how he had been confused and unsure at first. He told them how Lyrian had treated him, not as an enemy or outsider but as someone worthy of respect. He said he admired her courage, intelligence, and sense of responsibility. He said she had shown him that leadership was not about authority but about compassion and fairness. And then he admitted honestly that he had grown to care for her deeply. But he also confessed that becoming her husband was not a decision he could make lightly. He said he did not want to come into her world and cause conflict or divide. He wanted to stand beside her in a way that benefited her people, not harmed them. And he wanted to choose her not just because of destiny or expectation but because he genuinely wanted to build a future with her. The hall remained silent for a long moment. Then one council member asked Marcus a question. He asked what a human could offer a kingdom like theirs. Marcus thought carefully before answering. He said he could offer dedication, loyalty, courage in times of danger, and an open mind willing to learn their culture. He said he was not perfect, but he was willing to grow, and he said he wanted peace and unity, not power. The response seemed to impress many of them. Another council member asked Lyrian if she truly believed Marcus could stand beside her without being overwhelmed by the pressures of royalty. She responded confidently that she believed Marcus had more strength than he realized. She said he had already faced challenges most people would run from. She said he had shown his integrity many times, and she said she trusted him. Finally, the council gave both of them a moment to speak privately before they made their final decision. Marcus and Lyrian stepped aside. She looked at him with calm eyes, but he could see a small flicker of hope in them. He asked her gently if this was truly the future she wanted. She nodded, saying she didn't expect perfection from him. She didn't expect him to know everything or be someone he wasn't. She wanted partnership, not control. She wanted honesty, not perfection. And she believed they could support each other. Marcus took a deep breath. He realized that even though he had fears, he didn't want to walk away. He didn't want to go back to Earth and spend the rest of his life wondering what could have happened. He didn't want to deny something that felt meaningful and real. And above all, he didn't want to lose her. He told her quietly but clearly that he had made up his mind. When they returned to the center of the hall, everything was silent. No one moved. Marcus stood tall beside Lyrian and spoke with steady confidence. He said he wished to accept her question, not out of obligation but out of genuine desire. He said he wanted to stand with her, learn their ways, support their people, and build a future together. A wave of whispers moved through the room like soft wind. The council members exchanged looks. Some nodded slowly. Others leaned forward in interest. Finally, the highest elder of the council rose to speak. He acknowledged the difficulty of the situation and the unusual nature of their bond. But he also acknowledged Lyrian's sincerity and Marcus's courage. He announced that the council respected their choice and would honor it. The entire hall erupted into applause. Not wild cheers, but a deep, respectful celebration. Lyrian's eyes softened with relief, and Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. She reached for his hand gently, and he held hers firmly. In that moment, the world felt lighter, as if they had crossed a boundary that had once seemed impossible. That evening, a grand ceremony was held. It was not a wedding, but a symbolic declaration of unity. Citizens filled the capital streets, watching from balconies and crystal screens. Marcus and Lyrian walked through a ceremonial pathway surrounded by glowing lanterns. The energy was warm, welcoming, full of hope. When the ceremony ended, Marcus and Lyrian stood together on a balcony overlooking the city. They watched the lights, the people, and the sky that shimmered gently under the twin moons. Marcus felt peaceful for the first time in a long while. Lyrian leaned slightly toward him, and he placed a hand over hers. They talked quietly about the future, about learning each other's customs, about connecting Earth and Rillian Prime, about challenges they would face together, and about possibilities that were now open to both their worlds. In the soft glow of the alien night, Marcus finally understood something important. He had come to a strange world as a stranger, unsure and afraid, But he had found something he never expected: purpose, trust, and a bond that crossed two different species, two different cultures, two different lives. And as Lyrian looked at him with calm affection, he knew he had made the right decision. Humanity had always been known for courage. Tonight, he proved it again.